We implaned about, say, 9:45 or a little before 10 o'clock in the evening, and then we flew around out over the English Channel and formed up, so we were in the formation that they wanted.
Now, how upon taking off, how much sooner before then had you got your orders and knew exactly what was going to happen, where you were going?
Well, while we were at the airport, we were at the airport 2 or 3 days, and they had sand tables laid out, and they showed us the topography of the area that we were going to jump in, and where we were committed to stopping the Germans from reinforcing down on the invasion beaches. And we were going to jump about 4 or 5 miles inland. And the way it worked out, we did. And when we first landed, a lot of the planes were detoured off their plan, and we were dropped, mixed up with other regiments from our division. Nobody in the stick I was in was in the same field I was. It was quite a mix-up. And
can you tell me a little bit about what your feelings were like on the plane ride over, and what your fellow soldiers were?
Well, the plane ride over, first I was awestruck at the number of ships underneath on the ocean going over, and I felt good about it, because I felt, well, they're putting a lot of effort into this, and so I'm sure we're going to have a good outcome. And let's see now. Well, anyway, if I can continue on.
Okay, sure, certainly.
Yeah, we parachuted down, and there was nobody around in the field I landed in, but I met 5 or 6 people, but none of them were from my regiment. As soon as I went to the edge of the field, which was encompassed by hedgerows, and a hedgerow, as I can describe it, is a built-up area with trees on the circumference instead of the rock formations that you see in New England. It was trees, and it was an obstacle even tanks couldn't get through too well. So we had these little clickers for a password. We were supposed to click them once, and of course you press it, you got to release it, so it ends up with 2 clicks, and the party that you're checking, for him to acknowledge the password, he has to give you 2 clicks back. And we used that. I understand some airborne didn't. I heard that after, that they didn't use them because they thought the Germans were wise to them. But I think it was a good password. And I remember when there were 5 or 6 of us joined, all from different regiments. We joined together, and if there was an officer or a non-com, he became the leader of the group. And I can remember some men running down the road opposite a hedgerow, and they were definitely Germans. They were running in formation, and you could hear their boots strike the earth. And we didn't give them the 2 clicks at all, because we didn't want to reveal our position to them, and we were just glad they ran on by. So then we went in about 4 hours before the seaborne troops went in, and about 4 hours after we started collecting the 6th, well, I got back with my regiment again, and we started on one of the towns that was on our list for cleansing it of the Germans, so to speak. And anyway, I got wounded in this first town, and we'd gone down one side of the village. It was a little country town, and there was homes, and then there was, right across the way was the barn and so forth. And we'd gone down the end of one street, and toward the center was fields, and I think the Germans were there. And I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And we were starting back from the end of the street, and I got shot through the left arm with an explosive bullet, which was outlawed by Geneva Convention rules, but somebody had used their spare time to file the tip of a bullet. I have the bullet here in 2 pieces of shrapnel that I get hit with later in Holland, and I'd like to show them to you.
Certainly.
Remind me, I'll have my wife get them out for you. They were in the picture that you read on page 3. Or I was holding them in the palm of my hand. They took a picture of the hardware that I get hit with. So anyway,
what did that feel like? Was it? I mean, what's it feel like to be shot?
It felt like somebody had hit me with the side of a shovel. It knocked me down, but there wasn't a whole lot of pain because the shock of being hit and wounded
and the adrenaline,
compensates for the pain somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know what the explanation is, but I've always heard that sometimes when a fellow has a grievous wound, he doesn't feel as much pain as you'd think he would, because there's a certain amount of shock that sets in, and kind of takes care of the pain. So anyway, I motioned like this where I thought the shots were coming from, because after I fell, there was a wall on one side of me, and they put 2 more shots near my head, and it spattered against the wall. So I motioned like this to the 2 fellows I was with, in the direction the shots were coming from, and they stuck their rifles around the corner and just fired at random in that direction. And when they did, I got up and I ran to the cover of the nearest barn. The two fellows had gone behind. So then we went up the street, and we, at the head of the company street, the head of the town's main street, where we had set up company headquarters. It was kind of like behind the hedgerow. That's where the wounded was being taken, and as well as German wounded that were taken, and we waited for seaborne troops to come up to us to take us back to England. And the first one I saw, incidentally, was a black man. He was driving the truck that come up to take us back. And at that time, the blacks were relegated to mostly driving jobs and things like that.
Segregated from the rest of the army, weren't they?
They weren't in combat units.
Yeah.
But I appreciated what this fellow did.
Yeah.
Even though he only drove a truck and took me back. And one odd thing, when I was in the truck, they put me aside of this young German soldier, and his arm was hanging by shreds, and I went to hold his arm steady from the motion of the truck so he wouldn't be jostled too much. I thought it was a little bit incongruous because, you know, half hour earlier we're trying to kill each other. Now I'm trying to help him.
Yeah.
But we became 2 human beings.
Right.
And both too young to be doing what we were doing.
Exactly.
Because I had just turned 21 the week before. I parachuted into Normandy. And he was not even as old as myself. Another thing, when I forgot to mention it, but when we were flying over looking for Ed Bobso, a lot of the planes were being shot down, and I saw at least one go down close to us, and I learned afterwards that the plane that I was supposed to have been on and moved at the last minute so I could be with my lieutenant and be his communication, being a radio operator. The other plane went down with everybody on board and nobody got out alive. And I had been bunkmates with these people for all the time we were in England, so that was tough to take, learning. I didn't know at the time that they were the ones shot down, but I learned after they were one of the planes that went down and nobody got out.
This is another button.
These are the two pieces of shrapnel, and I had them in my hand for the filming. These two pieces of the shrapnel that was in my body, the smaller one in my left knee, and the larger piece broke my right shoulder, clavicle bone. And this was the explosive bullet that they took out from my left armpit. And an interesting thing on any of these, if you were to look at it under a magnifying glass, you can still see the underwear I was wearing and the blood-stained clothing it was taken from.
I'll be darned.
When it entered my body.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for the interview, and once again, thank you very much for your service.
I'm sorry I got a little emotional.
Yeah,
You know, I think of these fellows that we lost.
Okay, so now we're preparing. You're talking the night before the actual D-Day landing.
Yeah.
Describe that. Okay, so this is your first actual combat. Talk. What were you feeling as you were flying over the channel and you knew that, okay, here in a couple hours, this isn't training, this is the real thing. What was going through your mind? What were you thinking at something like
I'm
that?
going to get killed.
Is that right?
I knew, maybe I wished it wouldn't, but we all felt we had that feeling that we're going to die.
Wow.
And we were put there for a reason. I don't know what the reason was supposed to be, but we were there.
Were you able, in a position in the plane, to see out at all, or was there windows?
It was dark.
Oh, okay.
Midnight, you know.
I wasn't sure if you could see the ships below the Armada or the
Couldn't
other.
see anything.
Okay.
They would travel without lights. We're lucky to see a hand in front of your face.
Yeah, yeah. And I imagine it was too loud in the plane to carry on a conversation, or were you able to talk with you?
Yeah, we whispered to each other.
Yeah.
We were told to keep it down. I remember that.
Yeah.
The flight lieutenant came in and he said, "Hey guys, keep it down. We want to hear anything we can from the outside." I said, "Okay." So we whispered to each other.
Okay, so let's move ahead here now. You're flying. You're getting close to the coast now, and Germans are starting to shoot up flak and stuff. Talk about that as you go through that, and then the jump, and walk us. You can give describe to us as that happened.
We knew we couldn't. The sound of the motors would attract the 88s, the German batteries down below. So we kept it as quiet as we could, and in fact we whispered to each other. I told you. And as we came close to the shore, we were told we're going to jump very soon. You're going to land in the dark. We don't know exactly where, but it's going to be in mostly farmland. That felt good, where we would land in the city, we hoped.
Yeah.
Get hit by a building. You know.
Right.
A few guys did.
Wow.
100 pieces. And we eventually formed up. It took hours for us to get together with our groups because we were scattered all over.
Well, how was that actual, as you got over and you started taking fire from the ground, was the plane all over the place, or I mean, was it
no,
the noise and...
it was steady. It had to be steady for us to jump.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if they were going like this, you get hit by the tail of the plane as you're going out.
Yeah.
You know.
I guess I'm just looking at, from my standpoint, never been anywhere near anything like that.
Yeah.
Just seeing movies like Band of Brothers and such, and and the chaos that it seemed like there was. What was the view as you jumped and your chute was opening and you were just waiting to land? What were you seeing around you?
An occasional farm light. We didn't know what it was, though. You saw a light here, but it was out as fast as it went on. It was like somebody had a flashlight.
Ah, okay.
But that's about the consensus that we discovered afterwards we got together. We talked about that. And it was just dark.
But you never took any ground fire at...
We lucked out.
Oh, okay.
The planes did, but we had already jumped.
Jumped. Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
A few planes I saw him come down.
Ooh. Oh boy. Okay, so you land, and like I said, once everything I've read and movies like Band of Brothers and such, that there was chaos. Everybody did you make it to your initial land zone, or
No.
how far off were you?
Oh, way off.
Were you?
Yeah, we were supposed to be 12 miles in from the beach, where we're supposed to fight our way toward the beach
Mhm.
to stop the Germans from meeting the beach troops.
Okay.
And we did. We did all right. We
And your unit was able to gather together. I
yeah,
mean,
we knocked out a tank with a hand grenade.
really?
One of the guys, I hope he's still alive, crawled up into the tank, opened the tank turret, dropped the grenade down, and took off. And wham! We got our tank.
Wow.
That's something.
Wow. Wow. So you landed, knocked out the tank, and you started working your way towards the beach.
Yeah, that was the whole idea.
Uh-huh.
Once we reached the beach troops, our job technically was over,
Mm-hmm.
because it was just to make sure that the beaches were secure,
Mm-hmm.
and we did. And then
How soon after you landed did you meet up with the beach troops? Was it an all-day affair or a couple days, or?
it was a day and a half, I guess.
Okay.
We landed at night. It was the afternoon the next day.
Okay.
A day and a half.
Okay.
And wasn't it funny? I got to remember all this now.
Yeah.
But it comes back to you very quickly.
Okay.
You never forget it.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine that. Yeah. So you guys have made it now back to the beach. You've linked up with the beach troops. You said effectively your job was over.
It was, yeah.
And did you stay there, or did you guys then go back to England, or?
We went back to England
Okay.
and we were ready for our next jump, which was Holland.
Okay. How did your unit fare in that initial landing? Was there quite a bit of casualties? And
Yeah, about half.
half.
And then some of the guys cracked up mentally. It's not easy. You know.
Oh no.
I still see one guy. I used to. He's not. I think maybe he's gone. He lived in the Midwest somewhere. Anyway, I said it's I was a New Yorker, so I'm talking about the Midwest.
Yeah.
Like 1,000.
Yeah. So you're back in New York, or back in England now.
Yeah.
After all that, getting back, and I'm sure you were constantly busy and constantly thinking. But now you're back in England, and you've got time now to decompress and think about that. Did everything? How did you deal with that? How did things come flooding back to you, or was it?
But our next thought was, when are we going again? And none of us wanted to go, you know.
Right.
But we never said anything like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It came time for the invasion, and so we went down to Taunton, and then on the invasion we left Taunton at night in formation, and I led as a pilot 13 ships, and we were supposed to cross the coastline of France at 1,200 feet, and we got there all right, but at 1,200 feet we were in the clouds.
Wow. Oh boy.
At night, in formation, is not too good a place to be.
Oh boy.
So everybody went down, and of course that wasn't too good for the formation, but at least we got below, and I never forget when we got below the clouds, and we were in searchlights, and I had never seen them before. And they were so bright that you could look out the window of the airplane and see this black smoke from the projectiles out there exploding.
The flak.
And yes, and so that's pretty hard on a formation, you know. And I understand that the paratroopers were all disgusted because it didn't all end up the right place, but you know, under those circumstances, there just wasn't any way everybody could stay where they wanted to be.
Right.
So we dropped down to about 600 feet and got below the clouds there, and then we, to the best of our knowledge, went on to our designated drop zone.
I can only imagine. That must have been terrifying, being shot at, and I mean, it was. What was the?
Well, it made you pretty nervous.
Oh.
When we got to the drop zone, we dropped them all but one, and he had been shot when we were over the lights. There was a tremendous amount of anti-aircraft fire and lights there, and we after we dropped the troopers, we kind of tried to assess what condition we were in, and we had one engine that we had to feather the prop on, so we were flying on one engine, and the controls were not too good, and so we had a choice of heading for home or jumping out, and we decided we'd try to make it home. So
Wow.
we did fly at about 500 feet all the way home, and of course most of our flying was down on the deck anyway, because that was our only protection, you know. We didn't have any anti-aircraft or any
Turrets or
weapons to
Right.
fire against a fighter. And so we flew back at about 500 feet and got back to England and landed, and we brought it in as slow as we could, which was fortunate because we found out we had 2 flat tires. And so we ended up about 90 degrees to runway. And they did go to work on our plane and try to fix it up, and there was a hole in the rudder you could walk through.
Wow.
2 flat tires, and they patched over 400 holes from projectiles. And
of course, we were on LCI 540 and landed on the second wave. And when the tide, it was low tide to begin with. Well, let me back up. The 116th Regiment, well, I was 115th, landed at 6:32 on Omaha Beach at the Veerville Draw. And Company A, which was one of the leading companies, lost 96% of their men in the first 15 minutes. When we came in, of course it was later, the tide was rising. Well, the tide rises 18 feet on Omaha. Well, it washed all the dead bodies in the channel, and also the wounded and dead that were on the beach into a 4-yard wide, as far as you could see, from either direction of bodies and body parts.
Oh, jeez.
We lost 3,000 men on D-Day, our division. Well, first division in our division. Well, we landed, we're supposed to land at the Normandy, or not Normandy, Lama Lane area. But due to the rising tide and currents and all, there were 8-foot currents, or 8-foot waves. We landed in the first division's area. And, well, to back up, the 116th left their motherships over cargo nets and davits in the LCVPs and LCAs, which were British. And
These are like the Higginboat type.
the LCVPs were.
Okay.
The LCAs were British.
Okay.
And they were going to the Veerville. But it was a 3-hour trip from the mothership to the beach. And these flat bottom ships were doing this. Every everyone was seasick. They had to bail out water and vomit with their steel helmets because some pumps couldn't take it. And of course they landed all over the place. So I said we landed in the 1st Division area. And the slope was about like this. And I don't know if you know where the cemetery is in Colville, but that's where we landed, right below there. Well, General Huebner of the 1st Division, when we came in and finally got to the top of it around noon, he said the 29th men should go to he would take the 1st Division to Colville, and we were to go to isn't that awful?
That's fine.
Okay. Well, anyway, which is west of there. I'll think of it in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we dug in up there just outside town, and it was light on D-Day until about almost 11 o'clock because it was on double English savings time. And we were attacked several times, snipers, but on the hill going up, there were mines, and a lot of the men were killed by the mines. There were 6 million mines in the Omaha area.
Let me ask you, Mal, particularly for someone like myself that's never experienced combat and can't wrap my brain around it, what it must be like. What was it like for you, particularly, as you guys were crossing the channel and you had all night to think about it? What's going through a person's mind when you're crossing over, and then when you and can you explain what you were thinking as you guys hit the beach and just if you remember what your feelings were and your thoughts were?
Of course, they told us it'd be a picnic. Everything would be wiped out. All we have to walk in, which of course didn't happen.
So on the way over, you really weren't all that concerned at that point yet. Then.
Well, they were concerned,
Yeah.
but thinking, well, it's going to be an easy landing, but it wasn't.
When you landed on the beach, it still hadn't been secure. There was still fighting going on.
Oh, yeah, there was fighting all the way through till, like I said, even after I got wounded, they still kept on going. And where I got wounded, Carantan, that's the way the French called it. And from there, the medics took me back in a stretcher, put me back in one of them, I called it a grasshopper airplane. They had the tail end, and that's where they load you up. I forget the P-47, what it was. And there they take you across the channel. See, I was in the 74th General Hospital in Southampton, England after that. Then I don't know how long they kept me there. Then when my eye was plugged up, I still had a patch when they put me back in the lineup.
Well, talk about how did you get injured? Can you talk about how you got injured?
Well, we were, when you got in there, you had if your gun wouldn't work or something like that.
Yeah.
Your rifle, which I had a 30-30 Springfield, and then if that didn't function, that wasn't the case with me. There was me and this other guy, a sergeant by the name of Montgomery. I remember his name real well, and he was a man about your built, and he was a very bright man. We dropped our guns and we got into a machine gun because they had killed the machine gunner, the guy, the gunner of the machine gun, the crew. Me and another guy, Captain Healy, I think was his name, and he was another brave, pretty, a good sized man and a brave man, and so was Montgomery. Well, we were in that machine gun entrenchment. They were over there in the hedgerow, and it was all a lot of hedgerow fighting. Which the hedgerow, there's no, unless you're under the hedgerow, you dig a hole and and they knew where we were at, but we didn't know where they were at. So when they landed at motor shops, that's when I got wounded.
Oh, so the
Their
shrapnel.
motors were big, a little bit bigger. They were tinier, but they were bigger. Ours was, I forget what gauge they were, but they were good. If you know how to operate one, you could put it in your pocket.
So you got hit by shrapnel from the explosion, and caught you in the eye.
Yeah. I don't know if you can see across.
Oh yeah.
Across here, cut this whole thing. This was hanging down. And this my ear. They made those little. That's all that's left. Those little bumps. And right here, the scars there. I can feel it there. Now this here, there's something broken in my inside of the drum. They gave me the name a long time ago, but some little bone in there that was we hear, But then both of my ears are not that good.
And I see that you wear a hearing aid. Is that caused by that?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Well, yeah. But like I say, it's not.
Yeah.
It's like when I put new batteries, it's either too loud. When I go to a meeting, why, okay, I can hear the person like you and me, I can hear you, but they're over there, everybody chatting. Forget it.
Now, were you knocked out? Did that knock you out when?
Yeah, my medic said, hey, you stay there, keep putting me in the stretcher. And I got up looking for my rifle. Well, you do goofy things.
Yeah.
And I don't care what man says he wasn't afraid. He's lying. Any man that says they weren't afraid, no matter what, how, what time, what the situation was.
English Channel was really rough June the 5th. That's why they didn't land the 5th. And I had KP duties. I was in there and I got sick of the dog. And I said, no matter what you say to me, I got to go lay down. So it calmed down the next morning. And I remember being down in the LST and we could hear some depth charges and we found out we was going to go on the beach. So they opened up the front, and whoever was doing the engines on the craft, they brought it around front.
Well, let me interrupt you here for those that'll watch this tape. An LST was one of the large flat-bottom ships that went right up to the beach and dropped open.
Yeah,
Okay.
the front opened up.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Continue your story there.
Yeah. And they also had LST did that too. LST was a pretty good sized ship.
Yeah. Right.
And and then they brought the barge around, the Rhino barge, and we got on the barge, and there was anti-aircraft army that they loaded on the barge. So we started out, this was around 10 o'clock in the morning. We didn't go when we was going to the beach, it was around 10 o'clock.
Yeah, but that was what we hit the beaches about 6, didn't we? So you weren't too far off from the original wave, were you?
Well, they already had, the Army had already went in, there's some pillboxes that they knocked out. So as we unloaded and started out, and I stood up on they had a bulldozer in the middle. Now, how come they had a bulldozer? But anyway, I stood up there, and the Germans started lobbing 88s at us.
Oh, geez.
But we were going slow, and they'd land on the right-hand side of us. So we got close enough to the beach. They signaled me, and they told me where they wanted in. So we dropped the ramp, and the first guy went off in the Jeep. He hit a shell hole, and he had a vest on. He come bobbing up and pulled him out. So we backed off and to another spot. So we hit that right, and we unloaded all of the anti-aircraft unit.
Which beach did you land on?
Utah.
Utah?
Now Utah beach was flat. It was more like it was farmland. Yeah, so it's flat. Now Omaha Beach as you know, it was
Right.
a
The
cliff,
cliffs.
and they had a lot of casualties.
Can you describe the scene? I mean, you had a front row seat to all this. What can you describe the scene around you, the sky, what you saw on the beach, the ships? Can you give us a description of that, what that day looked like to you?
Well, it was a calm, sunny day. Of course, I was busy
Right, right.
waving the flags, and on down the beach, they was doing the same. They was unloading, and so we finally found a calm spot, and the got unloaded, going to back up, and then they didn't raise the props. They broke both
Oh,
props
boy.
off, so we had to go in and dig a foxhole. Well, at this time, I have pictures. There was already had German prisoners at that time. Well, not too far from where these prisoners, we dug a foxhole, and so it was 5 of us. In the center, where we had our stuff, they had some kind of separated off, and we went back to get our stuff. And I was standing there, and I says, "There's 4 planes headed towards us." I said, "Look at them little sparks coming out of the plane." That guy says, "They're strafing us." So they strafed. So we ducked down, and one pilot dropped the bomb. It hit on the back end, raised the barge up, and water all over, but he missed us.
Wow.
So, and then after that scary moment, we went in and stayed in the foxhole that night. Well, there was a farm not too far in, and this is where we ended up going in and setting up where they set up. I got pictures where they had the chow line, and you could see where some of the gliders, you know, a lot of the went in with gliders, and they was laying around, some of them were wrecked, and we all, instead of everybody staying together, everybody dug their own foxhole, and this happened. There was a barrage, one of the barrage balloons that busted, so we got that, and we had to line the foxhole with that. So I had this, so I had a pretty good foxhole with, and I can't remember what we laid on, where we had hay, or anyway, it was comfortable. And we took turns of going out, and we'd go out 24 hours and come back 24 hours and load the ship. And one night we went out, and it was late, so we went on the back hole on this ship, and I don't know what time in the morning it was. We heard a big explosion. The ship next to us, the Germans dropped a bomb in that hole and sunk that ship.
Wow.
And finally, years later, somebody that in Habitat went there, and I described it. He says the hull of that ship is still sticking out of the water. My
They got us on this LST. Of course, we had to spend one day because the water was too rough. And that's when they loaded these 105s on a duck, amphibious truck, and which wasn't very successful.
Yeah.
So that would have been like the 4th maybe that we loaded on the ship. And then we were supposedly ready for the 5th,
Right.
but we didn't go in until the 6th.
Right. Yeah.
But in the process of going across the ocean, we were on the LST. First thing they did is issued a brand new blanket to you. And then they said, "Come up and we'll feed you beans." That's all they had was beans. Of course, they were hot, tasted good. So we're down in the bowels of this LST. It's like a big whale.
Right. Right.
Well, we got about 6 miles out from France, and they pulled this rhino barge up to the front of the LST. We drove off onto the rhino barge. whole messes.
Huh.
Tanks, tractors, trucks, airplanes, anything that we needed was loaded on this barge, which were just steel containers welded together, and they were going to use that for a dock when we got done with it. Well, it was guided by an engine here and an engine here. They wanted to turn the speed this one up or this one. So the first thing we did, we run into a French troop ship, put a great big dent in the front of it. And I thought, boy, what'd that do to us? Nothing.
Huh.
So then we went across to we were supposed to be H plus 30 minutes. Well, we tried to go in and land. They drove a Jeep off the end. He went out of the side. Put the driver back up on. They backed off, tried another spot, run a cat off. Then went out of the side. So we went, pulled back, and now the timing was almost perfect because we were supposed to be H plus 30 minutes. Well, it was in the afternoon when they finally got that thing lined up to get us off of there. Well, there was a little, now I figured this out later on, there was a lull between the machine gunning, when they were crossfire, killing so many guys. There was a lull where they finally got them shut off, and they were ready to use the 88s. Well, there must have been a period in there where we got on shore without being hit, and I got the truck on the shore, but now what do I do?
Now, which beach did you land on?
Belgrade.
It was on Omaha. Omaha, okay, yeah.
That's the one where the next morning there were bodies. Now, I think for a long time I shut all that out. There were bodies either drowned or shot. Cordwood.
Oh.
From mile down to where the 1st Division was. So these were all our guys that were dead, either drowned or machine gunned.
Once again, I keep going back to this innocent Colorado farm boy. I mean, to see that sight, I just can't imagine what would go through a person's mind.
Well, part of my character is if something I don't like, I blank it out.
Okay.
Now there's times that I cannot remember a darn thing.
Huh. Which is
Because
probably good.
I blanked it out.
Yeah, which is probably good. Yeah. Yeah. So you get off the barge and you're not sure where to go from there then?
No, it weren't. So it was Lieutenant Conover, Second Lieutenant, Corporal Sitzman, and I. 3 guys on the truck. Well, we parked the truck. Well, they were starting to shell then. So we got the heck off of that and there's a strip about this wide that had mine signs on both sides. October mining. Well, you know to stay on the path. Well, about that time, the guy said, don't stand around down there, that ammunition truck's gonna blow up. It was burning. Well, I thought that was the last of my truck. We left, got on this path, and 3 of us, and then we kind of moved back and forth with the way the shells were falling. Oh. And we'd go through an area where somebody had just been hit. Now, this one I don't like to tell, but they said there's going to be shell holes for you to hide in. Well, the only shell holes was one they were making And this guy was taking a crap down in one of these shell holes. Good looking, athletic guy. We went by one time. He was in the process. Come by next time, he's dead.
Oh.
And just before we got, there was a concrete wall that stopped us from going any further. Well, the tank had gotten that far, and the driver was still in there. I'd been to the Madame Tussauds in London, and the waxworks was, they had no color. That's what this guy looked like. He was sort of gray looking, sitting at the controls. Yet, that concussion, I think, had probably killed him.
Wow.
So, that was one of the guys that I saw killed. Funny thing of it is, I never had one of my close friends, a few of them wounded, but I never had one of them killed. So I managed to get home
Yeah.
with that part of my
Oh, good.
psyche
Yeah.
kind of clean.
Yeah.
Anyway, when we got on the beach, then we followed this trail, and just to the right it was Point de Hawk. That's where the Rangers had to go up, and they bombed the thing, so the bomb pits are still there. Well, in fact, they haven't touched them; they're still there now. Anyway, that's where we ended up the next day. And one of the officers down there said, "You two guys go down to the 1st Division and see if we got any artillery." Well, the story on that artillery was they were on these amphibious trucks, and they were overloaded, and the water would fill them up. They'd go down, turn over, jump the gun out, and come back up. This one guy that we helped back up on this barge said, "I was in that thing, I got tangled up in the camouflage net and I couldn't get loose, but I could hear blah, 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 the bubbles, blah, 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 I was going down. The gun fell out and the thing come back up." That's how he made it. So you knew there were a lot of them got drowned. Because that was, the Navy guys were doing their job, but they wanted to get the heck out of there. So many times they were in charge of the boat rather than having the Army guys charge of it. So they wanted to get rid of you, get the heck out of there so they could survive. Which happened so many times. Well, so the first time I got hit, I crawled underneath this truck, and the shells were coming over, and one come over, wham! I was hit. I did like this. Of course, I said I'm hit. The officers looked down there. I did like this. I was expected to see blood. It was grease off the bottom of the truck. We could laugh. That's my first laugh, see.
What's it like? I mean. Charlene, Warren and I were talking about communications back and forth to home, and one of my questions was what you were feeling from that on the home front, particularly knowing that Warren was in, well, really probably didn't know where he was in particular, that he was in harm's way, and then I imagine you got word that he'd been injured, and what were you feeling, and what were your thoughts from your angle?
Well, on D-Day morning, I was in summer school at college, Sterling College, and all the sirens and bells and whistles in the town began whistling about 7 in the morning. And we were afraid the town was on fire. We were sleeping in the basement of a dorm, and we got to our, no, before 7, because we went to a 7 o'clock class, and the professor said, "This is D-Day." It had happened. So I knew he had jumped, you know, that he was, and I didn't hear anything until the end of June, and all the kids from our little town of Abbeville came up to Sterling, and we had a picnic at the lake, and one of the girls there knew he had been injured, and she just told me very glibly and flipped, you know, that he was hit, and that was all we knew.
Oh boy.
And I do not remember when I found out how badly he was injured or anything else. He wasn't good at letter writing.
No.
He can tell that.
Do you remember? Then did he eventually write you and tell you, bring you up to date on
Right.
and everything?
From
And
the hospital after he got clear back up to England.
wow, but that's a good chunk of time. It wasn't
Yes.
like an email that you found out.
Right.
There was a certain, probably many days of uncertainty, I would imagine.
Right, a long time, and I had to keep my mind on the schoolwork to get through it.